Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome, and thank you, Sans, for having me here. I'm so excited to come and talk to all of you. Can't see you very well due to these lights, but I'll pretend I see your smiling faces. So I am Megan Munoz. I am very happy to be here, and I get to talk about one of the more exciting parts about, I think, the intelligence collection process, right? So how do we actually get the data from these sites? How do we do it efficiently, effectively, and get everything we need so that we don't have to keep going back and touching and looking at and clicking around people's social media pages, because we really do want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. I've got some really efficient tools that I love to use, different tips that I like to apply to all of my own investigations. So hopefully it should be pretty interesting. Here is some information about myself. I have been an intelligence analyst since 2005, unbelievably somehow. I got my start in the military as an active duty intelligence analyst, and then 10 years after active duty, I joined the reserves, where I continued to be an intelligence analyst there. But I also started to work for the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, which is where I live right now. I live on the East Coast, so if you're ever in that area, feel free to say hi. But I started to work for the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, and what I did there was I would do their race-based extremist investigations. So anything dealing with white supremacy, anything dealing with black separatism, and I would have to go onto people's social media pages and try to understand who they were, what their intentions were, and how we could potentially use that to garner different intelligence information. So I have spent quite a lot of time looking at many people's social media pages. And that just continued on in my career, where I spent some time in the private sector, started my business that you see here, DataPoint Intelligence, and I also am a trainer for the National White Collar Crime Center, where I develop curriculum for them that deals specifically with open source intelligence and social media investigations for ICAC investigators. So again, spending a lot of time on social media, in chat rooms, and messaging boards, things like that. So I want to reduce the amount of time and vulnerability that I spend there and download as much as I can and analyze it later. So that's really where a lot of these techniques are coming from. I also write a lot, I also share a lot, I develop curriculum, I teach at a couple universities, intelligence programs. I'm very, very based in the tradecraft of intelligence and good processes and good practices. So again, that's where this is coming from. Feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. I'll have my information up later. But let's actually get into the meat of this. So do we use OSINT, or open source information, in our investigations often? Yes, thank you for whoever said that over there. Yes, we do. It's so important. And coming from the military, back in the day, nobody looked at open source information as something relevant, right? It was just rumors, or it was just stuff online, right? It was just noise. But I think over the years, we've really gained a good appreciation for what OSINT is, because it is the near real or real-time information. It tells where people are, it tells what they're doing, it tells how they think, and it is easily accessible. So weaving this information into our investigations is going to pay dividends, but we have to do it in a very specific way. So there's a ton of usefulness of this open source information in our investigations, and if you are involved in investigations that will eventually go to court, you are going to have to understand how that information is going to be perceived and picked apart from opposing counsel or anything else. So we need to make sure that when we actually collect this information, it is being done in the most appropriate and efficient way. I'm not going to ask for hands, but I'm guessing that there has sometimes been an instance in maybe your investigations or someone that you worked with who's had evidence thrown out because it wasn't collected appropriately, or it wasn't handled appropriately, or it was shared, or it was manipulated. And that can be so discouraging, because you know that this person potentially does not deserve to be out and about. But because of the way things were collected, that is now the case. So let's do this right in every single instance, and then when it really matters, you won't have that sort of bad practice. All right, so the basics for this sort of stuff, it is quite basic, but you have to be very methodical in how you do this. So if it's for yourself, if you're just writing Intel reports or you're just creating a PowerPoint or something like that, it's okay to use the snipping tool and things like that to get pictures and whatnot, but you're not going to get all of the metadata or all the information that you really need from that sort of collection. So, for yourself, it's even if you don't need it for evidence, you really should download it in a certain way. So my advice to anyone that is doing any of these sort of investigations is you want to get in and get out. We do not want to be clicking around on people's pages. We really don't want to be spending our time just wasting it, going down rabbit holes, all that sort of stuff. You need to get that information and get out. So I don't have the exact statistics on this, but I was speaking with someone that worked for Meta and Facebook specifically, and they said that the more amount of times you visit someone's page, you are going to potentially be recommended as what? A friend, okay? We don't want that, especially if it is someone that we're investigating, right? We're using a sock puppet account or just stalking an ex-friend or an ex-boyfriend or something. We don't want that sort of recommendation, right? So we need to get in, we need to get our information, and we need to analyze it on another time, at another platform, in another area. So some advice for collecting before I get into the actual tools is please set up your sock puppet accounts or your undercover accounts, depending on what role you are working in. Those are going to be very important for your collection. This is not a class that teaches you how to create a sock puppet account. I have tons of information on that. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. But there's specific ways that you need to be building these and acting on them. Okay, so we can talk about that another time, but never use your own profiles. Always use an undercover account for this, and never use your own equipment. Why do I say that? You might say, well, why can't I use my own equipment? I've got my profiles loaded on my phone or something like that. I promise you, at some point, you will be lazy, clicking around, switching between profiles and things like that, and you're gonna forget which one you're on. And you're gonna do an accidental like, or you are going to search for something, and you could potentially reveal who you are or what you're doing just by poor practices. So my advice is, in any sort of investigation, keep all that stuff separate. Use separate equipment, use separate cell phones, use separate SIM cards, use whatever you're going to use, but keep it completely separate. And then collect as much as possible the first time that you're in there. If you think that this is a person that is going to be important for your investigation, get all the information you can and look at it later. And that includes, if you have the ability, to look at their family members, their associates, things that they like, places that they frequent in those online spaces. Get as much as you possibly can and analyze it later. And then whatever you're doing, create an audit trail. So there are some great tools that are out there, which I will talk about, that help you create audit trails. But whatever it is, even if it's in a Word doc, throw the search strings you put in there, throw the links in there, throw everything that you've done so that you can justify where you've spent your time and how you collected this information. Those processes will go a very, very long way. So always create an audit trail. But if it's for court, oh boy, we have to do this a whole lot differently, right? It has to be collected lawfully. You have to have the right permissions to be collecting this. It needs to be organized. It needs to be technical. It needs to contain all the metadata that you possibly can get from this information. So it needs to be done extremely specifically. And you have to have your proper chain of custody. So who collected this? Where was it stored? Who transferred it? For what reasons was it transferred? And there's all sorts of policies and regulations that are out there pertaining to this, but just understanding that this information needs to be protected in a certain way is going to be very critical. So having that proper chain of custody. And the best practices overall is you want to make sure that you are getting as much of the critical data as possible. So the date time stamps that this stuff was collected and uploaded if you can, as well as who's commented on it, who has liked it, who has shared it, because that is creating that whole network analysis of who liked this, who is involved in this. Always make sure, if you can, to download original pictures. A lot of social media strips pictures nowadays, but some of them don't, right? So the metadata might be contained within that photo. So depending on where you are, download it for the original. Always copy the URL. I used to work with an individual, and he would always say, look up look up at the URL, look up at the URL. And why would we look up at a URL? Because there's tons of data saved there, right? There might be information about when it was uploaded, or there might be another name of your subject that's found in the URL that they have changed it on their user profile. So you can get a lot of information from the URLs, but also it leads you back to the original source of the data, right? So you really want to be copying that stuff. And then you want to capture the user ID as well as how they refer to themselves on that profile. So there's many ways to do this. You know, there's like hundreds of social media profiles out there and platforms, and I can't tell you how to do it on all of them, but just a Google search about how I can collect the user ID on this particular platform or that particular platform, and grab that as well, because user IDs or profile IDs do not change, even if the username that is on the profile does. Okay, so you're going to need the actual user ID. So looking at this picture right here, this is from NW3C. The things that I have mentioned on the slides, if you're able to see it, what is missing from this? The URL is missing. Absolutely. Thank you. What else is missing? Who liked it? Good. Saw a hand in the back. And who shared it? Perfect. What else is missing? The date and time. Yeah. So practically everything I told you about this is missing, right? This is just a snip that honestly really doesn't help us that much, especially if we're going to be using it to prove something. So yeah, next, all you got to do to get that date is hover over, put your cursor over any of those on almost any social media account. If you just hover over the little globe that says 4 days or 2 days or whatever it is, it will show you the date time stamp of that. And that's what you should be gathering. So if I had told you I gathered this 4 days ago, you would have thought that that was what, like Sunday or something? Well, no, lo and behold, this was gathered in November. So it's a completely different story than what was initially shown to you, right? So besides for that, I'm also going to hover over the people that liked it. And I then am starting to create my association right there. After that, I am going to also look at who shared it, because that is really important, right? If you're going to like and share something, it means that you actually are probably involved in this area of whatever it is, right? So I'm going to assume that whoever James Lee is, you know, is associated or affiliated in some way with NW3C, right? And I'm building those associations. And then I'm also going to gather the URL. So looking at URLs, this actually tells us a whole lot of information about what I'm looking at. It's telling me I'm on Facebook. It's telling me I'm looking at a photo. If I was just on someone's profile, that would say profile. It's telling me the ID, the FB ID of this person, right, that long string of numbers. And then it's telling me the actual photo number as well, which is at the end, right? So that is telling us a slew of information that we're going to need and we're going to reference later if I was to use this as an example in court. Here's a little bit of examples for how you actually collect that information. You can look at the source data for the ID, or you can put it into like a third-party site, like the one up there, who posted what, and you can very easily get the ID of that Facebook page. So very, very easy to do. All right, and then when we also collect information, we constantly need to be thinking about metadata and hashing, because this is going to be really important depending, again, on what type of investigations that you're involved in. So metadata is just basically the attributes of a file. So that includes who took this picture, or who uploaded this document, who owns it, has it been manipulated in any way, shape, or form, what kind of device did it come from, you know, and this sort of stuff really will catch people up, right? Go ahead next time somebody sends you a picture and look at the metadata behind that, right? See if it was actually taken recently or if it was taken last month, right? See the specs on that picture. It's very, very easy, and I'll tell you a couple ways to do that in just a second. But this really matters because you can prove if something has been changed or has come from someone or any other thing that might help prove that this person potentially was involved in this particular act. It's oftentimes found in EXIF data, you probably hear that, or the source code data, so right-clicking on something and looking at the source code. These are two images of what that looks like. The one over on the far side, that is just looking at the properties of a photo. You can see lots of information from there, like when it was uploaded, when it was taken, even geocord location. And then this one here is a website that I use all the time called exifdata.com. I just upload photos in there, and then it gives you really good information, all the layout of the metadata behind the photo, as well as if there's geolocation in there, it will actually conveniently give you a map link to that geolocation. So it's super easy just to click on it and go out and see the location of this information. And then let's say you get a YouTube video that you want to save and see the metadata behind it. I like to use these two tools here, mattw.io and Citizen Evidence from Amnesty International. So both of these act in pretty much the same way. I do prefer the Amnesty International one, and I'll tell you why in a second. But both of these will allow you to just copy that URL in, and it will give you all the metadata behind that particular video. So this is what it looks like for the YouTube data viewer for Amnesty International. And as you can see, there's a ton of information there. I'm just going to copy all that sort of stuff and save it in any sort of audit trail or file report that I'm putting in. It also, down at the bottom, will give you the upload date as well as the time that it uploaded. So that can be extremely helpful as well. The favorite thing I like about this tool is it will also give you thumbnails or screenshots that you can use for facial recognition or reverse image searching. And it does it automatically. So I don't even need to go through this whole video and take stills. It does it for you, and I'll just plop that into a reverse image search or something like that. And actually, those links are real links that you can just click on and look at that information. My favorite one I use is FaceCheck ID. However, as of like 2 days ago, they announced that it's going to be a paid service. But I seriously think that this is a service that I would pay for because it is that good. All you do is upload images or those screenshots that the Amnesty International chose, and it will search for your face. And it is really, really good. Like, it has even found like cartoon depictions, and I couldn't even show you all the ones that it found for me, but it not only finds the actual photo that you uploaded, but the likeness of your face, because it is facial recognition. So if you're wearing sunglasses or it's a photo from like 20 years ago, it's probably going to find it. I've actually seen it find stills from YouTube videos and TikTok videos and things like that. So it's really, really good. And it will even give you an indication of the percentage that it's pretty sure that this is the person that is in the photo. As you can see, 100, 99, 99, 99, yeah, that's definitely me. Okay, so it's really, really good. And then hash values come into play as well. So especially depending on what type of investigation you are doing, especially if it's like child sexual exploitation investigations, they will have hash values assigned to photographs. And hash values are just a digital fingerprint, if you will. So it shows duplicates. So they're able to take the hash number and look for those same hash numbers all across the internet to determine if this is a duplicate photo or not. And so it can be really, really important because it will even sometimes show if this has been altered or not. If it's been altered significantly enough, it will have a whole new number assigned to it. And then you can tell that there has been a change, okay? So I've got a little example here of what hash values are that really helped me. If you've never done one of these little examples, this is Anders Brownsworth, and it basically is showing what a hash value is. So looking at this image right here, in the data section, it's blank, right? We have nothing in there at all. But you can see down at the bottom, there is still a hash, right? It's showing you that there's a string of numbers and letters that the computer will identify as a blank space. Now, if I put in some data into this, like my name, it will give a whole new hash value down at the bottom, which shows that this is a unique thing, a unique piece of data. Now, let's say I change one tiny little thing inside of this image. Let's say I changed the capitals on my name. I have a whole new hash down at the bottom. So that's kind of proving that depending on what you change in the data, the hash value will change as well. So you can say to a judge or something like that, well, this photo has been altered or changed because you see the hash value is different. And it's just a really good way to prove something or disprove something. All right, now let's get into the actual tools and programs that I use most often. So for tools and programs, I talk to a lot of law enforcement. I always ask them, hey, what do you use for, downloading evidence or grabbing pictures, and they use the snipper tool. And it is my now lot in life that I'm trying to change that practice, okay? I want you to stop using the snipping tool unless you are building a PowerPoint, okay? We are trying to gather information, so it's not great. It's not a good practice. A better practice is to save the website as much as you can. Save the whole website. Download as much as you can. If you're on a profile, we're not just snipping the profile picture or even downloading the profile picture. We're getting the whole profile, everything that we can see, right? That is a better way. Because I promise you, with a good night's sleep or stepping away and getting a cup of coffee, you're going to come back to your desk and you're going to look at this evidence and you're going to say, wait a second, I didn't know those people were connected before, and that is really important to my case. So I think the more that you can grab at once, the better. So web page savers are the best, and they're normally browser add-ons, which is extremely helpful. So the ones that I really like the most are single file. This is one that I use probably 20 times a day. Single file is my favorite, and I will give an example of that later. There's also Go Full Page, which is very helpful as well. It saves it down to a PDF, and both of those are saved on your computer. And then you might have heard of Forensic OSINT as well. This one's helpful too. It will grab pages of websites. You can put in notes and all the metadata and things like that. So those are the three that I recommend right off the bat. And then if you're doing things where you have to present a lot of evidence in court, a lot of courts really appreciate Hunchly or Page Vault. Those are both professional tools. They are very good. They will create an audit trail for you. What you click, what you search, it will look for keywords, it will tag photos. They are very powerful. They also come with a price. But depending on what type of investigations you're doing, those ones are probably the best. Now, the two will store differently. Hunchly will store on your local device, and then Page Vault will store on a third-party server. So again, just depending on what the particular court likes or not is what you can use. All right, so let's talk about single file for a second, because this really is my favorite and the one that I use every day because I don't have the paid tools. So this one is free. This is a browser add-on. And what you're looking at right now is an actual copy of a Facebook page. So this is NW3C's Facebook page, and it is an offline copy. How do we know that? You look at the URL. You look up. So you can see, or you can't see, but I'll explain it. It says, see users Megan Munoz downloads. And so it has literally downloaded a copy of everything as it looked as the time I collected it. And the good thing about this is it has a date time stamp on there. So it says that I downloaded it from Facebook on 2/10/2024 at 5:39 and 13 hours p.m. Okay? So that is that timestamp. So I can go to whomever and say, this is what this page looked like at this moment in time. If it has changed since I collected it, that means that they have changed it, right? They've added or they've subtracted or what have you. But at the moment of discovery, this is what it looked like. And so there's also live links here too, which is the most impressive thing about single file. So basically, I have put my cursor over that picture of Mo, and if you look down at the very bottom, you can see that there's a URL there. That is actually an active link. So if I were to click on that, it would go to the online copy. But if I need to prove that that FBID is there, that photo is there, and that's the unique URL, it is all saved. And that is true for any single link that is on that page. I could have hovered over any single link, any single user, anything, and it would have that unique URL. So that, again, is going to be extremely important, because if somebody says, that never existed on my page, that's ridiculous, you can say, hey, absolutely not. On February 10th at this time, that URL was live. That was a true post. So it really helps to solidify your collection. All right, and another thing that single file does amazingly is it allows you to download multiple tabs all at once. So that is just so exciting for me as an Intel geek. But I always open up so many different things, whether it's the photos, whether it's the events, whether it's a million pages open, right? And all of them are important, and I need to save all of them. So what should I do? Well, I just use some of the options on single file, and it downloads all of the tabs that I have opened, or the selected ones that I choose. So it saves me an extreme amount of time by not even just having to go over and click on things. So that's one of the best features I think that single file does. Then let's say you want to download media on a page. Let's say it's videos or images or sound bites or what have you. I like to use a couple different ones. There's Instant Data Scraper. That is a Chrome and Edge and Firefox add-on. And as you can see on the slide, basically it will find all of the media on the page, and it will download whichever ones you choose to download. You can download them all, or you can download a couple of them, but it will have the stamps on it, and it will have the descriptions and everything like that. So right here, I'm on NW3C's page. I'm on their events page, and I want to grab all of the events that NW3C has hosted, along with when it was uploaded, the descriptions, everything like that. I'm going to use Instant Data Scraper, grab all that, dump it into a CSV file, and have that for my records. If you're a Firefox user, I recommend Download Star. Download Star does the same exact thing, and you can see where we've got the images, videos, documents. You can choose what you want, and then again, it downloads it to your computer, and you can have all the metadata that is available on those pictures or images. And what about videos? What about downloading videos? There's many of them. I like Stories Down the best. Stories Down kind of does a dual role where it allows you to watch public TikToks, Reels, Instagram stories without the user knowing that you're watching those. So again, we really don't want to click on someone's active story because they'll know who looked at it. So I will watch things through Stories Down, and then if I need to download it, I can very easily do that with just a click of the button. Other ones, fdown.net is a great Facebook one, and again, very, very simple. YouTube, there's just a couple little things that you can put in the URL, and it will download the video. So there's many, many different ways to do this, but this is a great way if you need to download that information. All right, and then let's say you're on someone's Facebook page, and there's a ton of comments that you want to grab, but you don't want to go through and click every single one. That takes up so much time. There's a bookmarklet. It's called Jen Farley's Facebook bookmarklet. There's the link right there. And all you do is click on Expand All or Scroll All, and it will expand them. And then you can gather all of that information after by using single file. So again, I don't want to waste my time opening up every single comment and sub-comment. I'm just going to use this bookmarklet. And this is kind of what that looks like. So this is Taylor Swift and her boyfriend, and basically where you can see on the side there was 166 different comments. Well, I expanded them all using the bookmarklet, and then I did single file. You can tell that because it's up at the top. It's a download. And then I downloaded all of that information. So again, using the tools, combining, these are both free things, you're able to get the information that you need. All right, and I use another tool as well called Export Comments. This one is a fantastic tool. And what it does is you can put a URL into this, and it will export all of the comments. And it puts it in an Excel document, and then you're able to just really go through and do your Control Fs and search for keywords or certain people. And the first 200 comments are free, and then it's like a nominal price after that. So you may need to pay for it depending on how much data you need to download. But you can see that this will allow you to do it for Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and VK and Discord and Steam, and they add stuff every single day, I swear. So as you can see when I grab this, they have added Walmart reviews as well. So let's say you're doing things with fraud or something like that. You want to know all the comments for a YouTube one. I'm pretty sure they do it for Yelp and Amazon and all that sort of stuff. So again, depending on your investigations, this one might be really, really powerful. And this is what it looks like. So as you can see, we've got the URL up there at the top. We have the time zone, UTC. And then you can see we've got all of the users that have liked this. We also have the date timestamps there. We have if it was liked or hearted or shared, as well as the actual comment. So if I am looking for something specific or specific user, this is probably how I'm going to do it. So I can tell who liked what and who interacted with it. All right, so in our last couple of minutes, I want to go over some key takeaways. So some of the key takeaways is that proper collection and storing of information, regardless of what type of investigation you're doing, is critical. You never know when something might end up being important, so you really want to be able to make sure that you are indeed storing and gathering this information in the most efficient way. There's a ton of tools out there. I've made recommendations to several. I've got a slide that wraps them up in the next one. So use those tools to your benefit, but I would say understand what's behind them, how you use them, how it can be applicable to your investigations, and of course, as always, follow the policies within your organizations as to if you can or cannot collect information in this way. And my best advice is to play around with them before you actually need them, because you do not want to be struggling when you're like, we've got to present this in court in 3 hours, and you're like, I don't know how to collect something that shows that evidence, right? So play around with it beforehand, and it will help you in the future. Collect more than you think you need. You always want to grab more things because you are not, on the initial go through, going to understand all of the different nuances, all of the different connections, all of the different networks. So tools like single file that data dump will really, really help you in your investigations and going through and looking at them. And then, as always, make sure you're properly storing it as well, and you are appropriately sharing it if necessary. Need to know, right to know comes in here, proper chain of custody comes in here. So just making sure that you know how to and when you should send or not send is going to be really important. All right, so these are my top tools that I discussed here. If you would like a copy of these slides, feel free. I think they're actually in your portal. And these are links, so if you want to just go straight out to the Chrome store or whatever to download them, those are all links. Tried to make it as easy as possible for you. But that is it. That takes me to almost the end of my time, so I have a couple minutes left if there are questions, but this is all of my contact information as well. I love LinkedIn the best, so go ahead and connect with me on there. And I do see a question.